What's up, War Rapport family? We are back with another great edition of Building Rapport. Today, we have a very special guest for you guys. Former quarterback from the undefeated 2004 season, Jason Campbell. Jason, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, appreciate you guys having me on. And everybody, you see how my guy just changed his voice all of a sudden. He went from not talking on air to all of a sudden having that professional voice. So
Yeah, listen.
I've been knowing him ever since we was in college. So I used to mess with him all the time. So I'm just glad to be on here and be able to talk with you guys, you and Willie.
Jason, I want to open the interview up just asking you a little bit about your time at Auburn. You guys had some very memorable moments at Auburn. You played with some great receivers. We had Devin Aroma-Shadu on. We had Ben Obamanu on as well. Those guys talked about what it was like to play with you. Can you talk about what it was like playing with, well, a lot of people think were the most underrated, but the greatest set of Auburn receivers to come through Auburn?
Well, you're talking about Ben and Devin. You're talking about two of the most classiest guys that ever come through Auburn, and two of the guys that done it the right way, worked extremely hard. Two of the most unselfish receivers, even Anthony Mitz as well. You could throw it there, and Courtney Taylor. All four of those guys were very unselfish because all four of them came to Auburn as receivers that wanted to catch the ball. And I even came to Auburn as a highly touted quarterback in passing the ball. And, all of us had to kind of take a back seat a little bit because at Auburn it was all about when we had Ronnie and Cadillac, they wanted to run the ball and play action here and there. But when Borges came in, the main thing he talked about was we have too much talent on this football team that's not getting exhilarated. And he was like, my job is to make sure that everybody feels involved on the offense, make sure that everybody touches the ball where defenses can't tell who's going to get it and understand and know our tendencies. So, he definitely ramped up those guys' confidence. We started spreading the ball around, and he was someone I was like, man, I wish you would have had you our junior year as well, because we would have broke all kind of record books at Auburn. We had that type of guys that cared about winning more than they cared about their own individual accolades.
All right. Well, Jason, listen, you talked about junior year. Let's dive into junior year a little bit, right? You come in, this is your third season at Auburn. And I feel like the light's starting to come on a little bit for you, but talk about like the progression from freshman at Auburn to junior year. You are now the full-time starter, right? Like you had traded some starting duties before that, but like you coming in, you're the guy. Talk a little bit about that progression from that freshman year to that junior year.
Coming as a freshman, you're highly touted. When I came out of high school, I was the number 2 quarterback in the nation behind Brock Berlin, that came out of Louisiana. So, everyone's kind of want to see, how you're going to adjust to playing in the SEC. And,
Right.
It's a lot of pressure that you carry because you don't want to disappoint. And the most important thing I had to learn as a freshman, even though I had some really good games and I had some games I had to learn from, was stop trying to please everybody. Start trying to understand what got you to this point was you was playing a game and you was having fun and you wasn't making it to a point where you feel like you had to prove something to people. And I think once I was able to kind of pass that up after my freshman year, going into my sophomore year, Daniel Cobb was there. And we ended up sharing time the first couple of games. He started like the first 5 games of my sophomore year. And I was playing in a lot of those games still at the same time. But then all of a sudden in the Florida game, Cadillac got hurt and Ronnie ended up coming in. And then they ended up pulling Daniel Cobb and putting me in. And then from that standpoint on, I was a starter for the rest of my Auburn career.
Right.
And I just remember when I got the job back as a full-time starter was, man, just control what you can control and play your game. Of course, you want to do different things, but you have to work within the offense. And I just remember just trying to make myself fit into what we was trying to do and be as successful as possible and not worry about what we weren't doing so much. I think a lot of times kids nowadays worry about what you're not doing or what you should be doing instead of doing what's called to be done. And I think that was one of the things our football team did. I had a really good sophomore season. I thought I was really growing, and then all of a sudden, boom, Bobby Petrino leaves, take the Louisville job, and next thing you know, we're transition again. Instead of Tuberville getting a new offensive coordinator, that kind of knows the game. An offensive coordinator he's really a play design, but it's an art. Like you got to know how to call plays in the first half to set up things in the second half. And
Yeah.
you just can't look at a sheet and say, I want to call this. You got to understand situations. You got to understand what defenses are doing. You have to make the defense adjust. And we tried to put Hugh Null as our offensive line coach up to the offensive coordinator position. We tried to do it by committee. And that's a tough thing to do. People think you can just do that. Like we're in the SEC and he's never had experience as coordinator before. And I would say you thrust him into this job, and any coach is going to take it because everybody wants that next step up. But
Mhm.
it doesn't mean he was prepared and ready for that next step like that. Like he was a great offensive line coach and one of the best offensive line coaches ever come through Auburn. But as an offensive coordinator, there was a lot to learn. And going into our junior year, we was preseason number one. And when you're preseason number one, everybody expects you to show up. And the first two games of that season, we got bounced, and a lot of it was because very inexperienced, coordinating and everyone's trying to learn each other. Like I said, there were certain things that Hugh did from a run game, but then we had other coaches with Coach Knotts and sometimes Coach Iseminger and other guys trying to develop the passing game, and everyone is trying to. Anytime you have too many heads in anything, it's just going to be some complications.
Yeah.
And I think after we lost those first two games, I'm not mistaken, Mike, we ended up winning the next five in a row, and then we ended up losing a heartbreaker to Ole Miss. And then, but
Yeah.
we closed out our junior year. I tell everybody the most important part of our career was winning those last two games of our junior season, winning the Iron Bowl at home, and then beating a really good Wisconsin team in the Music City Bowl. So we ended up winning 15 games in a row because our
Mm.
senior year, like I said, we'll get into it. We ended up going 13-0, but everybody think it all started that season. No, it started the year before
Mhm.
because we had so much high expectations. And then when you don't meet all those high expectations, we didn't have a failure. We still had a good year, but by our standards, we wanted to be playing in the BCS. And,
Right.
so we feel like we didn't achieve what we wanted to achieve, but by no means we ever had a losing season or ever had a really down year. We had some really good years. And, but we finished that year off the right way. And what helped us win in our senior year, we went through the hard times that we stayed together. No one separated, no one blamed anyone, but we stuck together. And when you stick together through hard times, when the good times come, man, you're rolling. And it's just like you can't be stopped. And because we've already gone through the trenches.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that reminds me of, honestly, I know it's a different sport, is our basketball team right now, right?
Mhm.
Like just coming in with such high expectations and not realizing that ultimate goal. You all was the BCS national championship. For them, it was getting out of, the round of 32, maybe Sweet 16, Final Four, national championship, whatever it might be. What can you say? Like, I know it's probably some young guys that are out there right now really down on themselves
Mhm.
about how this season ended in basketball. And you talked about being able to galvanize and use that as fuel for the next season. What can you say to those young guys to kind of help them through this period right now to push to that next space that they need to be in for next season?
Yeah, let's just face it. Let's be honest. First and foremost, Jabari is going pro.
Mm.
We know he's leaving. Kessler is still a question mark whether he's going to decide to leave or not. But majority of those guys are coming back next season, and they learned so much this year. Think about it. They went from a team that was barely ranked in the AP poll starting the season out. Then you climb all the way to number one, and you hang
Mhm.
on to that position for 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden you're getting everyone's best effort against you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you lose a game and people storm the court. And then you go to a Florida game and you lose another close game. But then you also come back and you become the SEC champs of the regular season. And then you lose in the first game to Texas A&M in the tournament, and then all of a sudden you lose to Miami in the second game of the NCAA tournament. So you had this roller coaster of a ride this season, where
Right.
you seen the highest of the highest and you seen the lowest of the lowest. And your lowest moment, sometimes you got to sit back and remember what made us get to the highest point of our season. How did we get there? Because sometimes along the way the season, you can forget that sometimes.
Right.
And I think with this basketball team, they had a great year, but a lot of it is going to be talked about because of how they ended the season with the Miami loss, and then like the SEC tournament. And what they got to hang their hats on is say, okay, we're better than that, because one off game in a playoff situation can be the end of your season.
Mhm.
And that's what happened to us. Last night we couldn't hit any shots, and then we
Right.
couldn't, really dominate inside like I feel like we could have with our two bigs because they really just couldn't get going. Kessler got in foul trouble early. He missed the whole first half, and then Jabari, you can see him wanting to get it going, and it just wouldn't fall for him.
Right.
And it becomes frustrating when you're trying to play and win. But these guys, you have to understand that the group that's coming back, you got so much experience that a lot of teams don't even get because they never experienced being ranked number one and having to
Right.
hold on to that and have people chasing them. They're used to being the chaser. So now you understand what it's like to be chased. Now you understand what it's like to get to a high level and how you got to keep working harder to sustain being at a high level. Because I'll be honest with you, I feel like our basketball team start to look a little tired at the end of the year
Mm.
because I think for that long stretch of period of time, they were so trying to hang on to that number one spot that everyone else was giving them their best. And we're trying to, and when you're being hunted and people are chasing you down, you don't have time to catch your breath. So your next practice is hard. Your next game is hard. And you do that for 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. And it starts to wear on you a little bit. And I
Right.
think sometimes through experience, you have to understand how to treat your body, how to prepare your body to stay at a high level because it's not just about what you do on the court, but what you're doing away from the basketball court.
Mm.
What kind of foods you're eating, what kind of, your mental mind state. So I just think to these guys, man, I think, they can't look at this season and say, oh, it was a loss because, you lost in the tournament. Overall, you had an outstanding one of Auburn's greatest seasons in basketball history.
Right.
But you got to understand what can we do next time to finish the job.
Mm.
And like I said, it's always a building block.
Mm.
They can't they got a taste of everything this year. Now you already know Bruce gonna go out and get some players.
Right.
So what do you teach those guys that come in is gonna be the key and the glue to seeing this team makes a run all the way to the Final Four next season.
Jason, you talked about the '03 season, so I want to jump back to that a little bit. Sometimes past is prologue. So you guys, the weight of expectations in '03. You went through some notable moments in that season. Like you said, I remember it. I don't know if you remember. I remember those the practice before Vanderbilt.
Oh yeah.
We had gone 2 games without scoring a touchdown to start the
All right.
season. Tuberville gave one of the greatest speeches I ever heard him give in practice before we went to go play Vanderbilt, and then you threw a touchdown to Jarris McIntyre. That was the first time that we had scored that season. So you started out with some struggles, went on a little bit of a winning streak, and we asked Ben about this. Then there was the drop heard around the world versus Ole Miss. You guys drive it down the field, and credit to Ben, he helped get us down there.
All right.
You threw a strike to Ben. He talked about the moment that a receiver decides whether to catch with his hands or with his body. He jumped, it kind of slipped through, and disappointment rang true that day. Can you talk a little bit about how those moments, I know you touched on it with the basketball team, but in relation to football, about how those moments helped build character for you guys going into that undefeated 04 season, and what message do you have to last year's football team about the moments that they went through and how they can use that to springboard into this season?
Yeah, your biggest like I said, accomplishments come from some type of setback. We call them setback. I don't like to call them failures because I don't really think you fail. I think you can work hard at something, and just because you don't reach your expectation, it's not a failure. It's just a minor setback. And I think that setback that we had that year, like I said, starting off the way that we did, and then going on a winning streak, and then to lose the game that we lost to Ole Miss, and then hearing everybody come down on Ben, that was a moment for us to comfort our brother. Uh, I remember vividly doing a lot of interviews that week, and everybody was trying to just get me to say something about Ben in a negativity way. And I was just like, I just can't do that. I was just like, he's not the reason we lost the game. I said there was other opportunities for us to win the game. I said he's one of the reasons why we was in that position to have an opportunity to win the game. And I said, so you can't just take away everything he did up to that point and put it all on one moment. And I think people do that too many times to people, is they like to place one moment on someone's life and let that define them. And it's not fair. Just because he had a drop pass and it cost us a loss in the game. Like, you can't just say it cost us a loss in the game, and you can't just plant that on him, and he has to carry that because, like I said, Ben is one of the most upstanding guys and one of the reasons we had a great '04 season. And I think because the way the guys came together and comforted Ben earned a lot of respect. Ben kept his head up, kept grinding. One of the reasons why now he went on to play in the NFL and now went on to get a law degree and doing so many other great things because it taught him not to quit just because you had a minor setback. And I think like if he didn't have the science, the strong supporting cast that he had, as far as a brotherhood, like I said, in the locker room, it could have really derailed his confidence. And it can cause you to go a different way. You see players when they lose confidence and how it affects their mindset, their mentality. And I think for Ben showing his determination and his courage to get back on the field and continue to play hard and keep his head up, like, it just goes to show you like the true character of a person. I always say, don't show me who you are when everything's going your way. Show me who you are when things kind of go against you. And that's just the type of kid that he is, what he was then. And today he's like I said, he's one of the better human beings you ever meet. But like I said, when you go through something like that though, like it really, really is either gonna bring you closer or it's gonna divide you. And that's how I look at this football team's this season coming up. Last year, you start off the season kind of looking a little promising. You go to Penn State, you lose a close game, and everybody's like, "Well, I can see something." And all of a sudden, people start hanging their hat on that, and then all of a sudden, you lose a tough game in Texas A&M, and then you come back, you're up. You lose a huge game to Mississippi State in the second half, where you're giving up more than 28 points before we even score. Or I think it was 40 unanswered, if I'm not mistaken. And all of a sudden, now everyone is talking about what's happening to the program. And you end up losing the season, losing 5 games in a row. And anytime you lose 5 games in a row, especially at a program like Auburn, what do you expect it to be silent in the off season?
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
there's going to be some noise being brought up. And because everyone expects more from your program, especially when that school across the street that's your rival is consistently playing for championships. And you want to find a way to stay up and get a high level. And I think what this team can understand is if you're guys on this team, like I've talked to some of these players before, I said, guys, what y'all have gone through, most guys that came through Auburn has gone through something similar in their point of their career. I
Mm.
said I went through a different coordinator every year. We went through all
Mhm.
the noise of, Tuberville may get replaced and another coach may be brought in. They call it the flight gate or whatever they called
Mhm.
it.
Jet gate.
Jet
Uh,
gate, yeah.
yeah, like so. You're not the first ones to go through something. I said what we did was take it amongst ourselves to make each other stronger and everything because it doesn't matter who the coach is. X's and O's can be X's and O's. But what you decide to do together as a brotherhood is on y'all. And I
Mm.
said, y'all can use this as fuel. I like to bring you guys closer together and understand that, you know, everybody need to be held accountable and everybody need to be in the same space. And your space should be concentrated and focused on the desire to win, but the desire to get better in the off season to push each other. I said, stop worrying about who's getting this or who's getting that because, times have changed. You got NIL things coming up now. You got, people worrying about who's getting more accolades because or who getting more followers on Instagram and Twitter. I said, all that stuff has to become secondary. I was just like, you have to look at your brother next to you and understand why are you here and why are you playing the game? Like if you were here and you decide to play the game, you put that helmet on. Don't forget you was that kid in high school hoping to get a Division I scholarship. Now that you got the scholarship, don't all of a sudden become complacent or all of a sudden become entitled where you feel like everybody's supposed to do for you. Like no, go out and earn your stripes by playing this your brotherhood because the most ultimate respect you can get as a player is from the guys in the locker room.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that's what these guys got to get back to because Coach Harson, yes, he's always going to be under a microscope. Anytime you lose 5 games in a row, you're going to be on the microscope. And then all of a sudden, if you come back this off season, you know, he's had a chance to go through a full year at Auburn now. When he first got here, I don't really know if he really knew the magnitude of how big this program is from a standpoint of being in the SEC and having to go through a gauntlet of a schedule. He came from Boise State, where pretty much they was the dominance in their division. And when you're used to that, and from a recruiting standpoint, kids want to come to Boise, but here you got the LSUs, the Bamas, the Georgias, the Tennessees, the Floridas, the Mississippi States, everybody else that you have to compete against to get the same player. You're not just playing the game on the field, now you're playing the game off the field. And I think he kind of learned a little bit of what it's like to be at Auburn and what it's kind of like to play in the SEC and coach in the SEC. And I think this spring, after everything that has happened, is either going to bring this team closer together, or we're going to find out during the season what it's really going to be.
A lot during your time at Auburn, a lot was made of that transition from 03 to 04. And you hear fans, or we hear fans say a lot, the light turned on for Jason in year 4. But I've never heard you in all my years since then. I've never heard you do an interview and talk about what the biggest change for you, other than offensive coordinator. Obviously, Albert just came in. But what do you think? What was the thing? What was the proverbial light that turned on from you for you in 04 that catapulted you to a first round draft pick?
Yeah, I would say for me, man, it's like I said previously, stop trying to please everybody. And I just remember, man, just using everything as motivation because, I was doing a lot of good things, but it just wasn't getting seen. And the reason it wasn't getting seen is because I didn't really boast about it or really talk about it. We was a defense dominant team with Dansby and Dontarius Thomas. And, we was a defensive dominant team. It was a run heavy team. And, you can make some crucial plays in the game, but it seemed like it always got overshadowed. And then sometimes you can find yourself sinking and worrying about, like, everybody always try to find a reason to see what I'm not doing, and they're not seeing what I am doing. And for me, man, it just took one thing. And I just told myself, regardless of what happens, my job is just let it all just go out and just let it all hang out. Like, just play your game, leave it all on the field. Don't worry about how many passes you get. Don't worry about how many yards you get. Don't worry about anything. Just go out, play your game. Don't worry about trying to please the fan base. Don't worry about trying to please the head coach. Like, be Jason. And I think when I got back to doing that, that would kind of like help me propel to the next level because it released the pressure of trying to do what everybody else wanted me to do, but just do it the way that I know how to do it and do it the best of my abilities. And like I say, yes, Coach Borges came in, he changed a lot. Coach Borges actually showcased my abilities and everything. I feel like, I didn't ever talk about it or say anything to a lot of people about it. Like my family knew, my close friends knew, but there was a time, that it was really frustrating when I was at Auburn because, like I said, I came to Auburn as a passing quarterback. And then to get there and I'm handing the ball off 60% of the time, like, I'm a rhythm quarterback. You start the game off with some passes, you get into a rhythm. But when you run the ball 4 or 5 plays in a row, and then all of a sudden they want to call a pass, it's hard to get into a rhythm as a quarterback. And I felt like my best attribute was being able to scramble around if something wasn't there and make plays. And I just thank God that, Coach Borges came in there and he actually opened up the offense because, man, it wasn't just for me. Look at our receivers. Every last one of them played in the National Football League for 6 or 7 years.
Yep, that's right.
Running Brown went from just being a running back to being a dual threat running back, which jumped him all the way to the number 2 pick because he could catch the ball out of the backfield more than just run the ball, and that wasn't getting showcased until then. Cadillac got showcased more in the passing game and wasn't just a runner. And he didn't have to shell so much of the load where they would just run him. Everybody got an opportunity. So when we played defenses, they had no clue because they said we want to stop the run, then they couldn't stop the pass. If they tried to stop the pass, they couldn't stop the run. And we were so well balanced because everybody was so amped up. When you walk into a huddle as a quarterback and you got everyone's undivided attention because no one's looking off, everyone's engaged because they know, like, my number can be called at any given moment. Like, this could be the play for me. Like, it keeps you on your heels. It keeps guys engaged. And I think when you can do that, that's why I go back to saying coordinators, man, no matter if you're offense or defense, it's an art. And that's what Borges done for us. And like I said, Petrino was doing a little bit of that. He didn't get to the passing game perspective that as fast as he wanted to, but he was getting there. But then Borges, he came on in, man, and he was able to piece it all together and spread that thing out, man. But I just say this, like, yeah, we could have our junior year and senior year. Our junior year, we had the most talent. Our junior year by far was our most talented football team than our
Yeah.
senior year. But what happened our junior year? We didn't win because we went through some complications. And then, you know, most people was bought in. But at the same time, our senior year, everybody was bought in.
Ooh, okay.
And you know, and I think that kind of what helps, man, is when everybody's bought in.
Yeah, our coach has said it.
Talk about that buy-in for real.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about buy-in.
I mean, so we've heard about that from this previous year about the lack of buy-in for some of the guys and a lot of upheaval happening with players exiting the program. You know, transfer portal has changed the stick-to-itiveness, I guess I'll say, for players when they're not happy about their situation. But you just brought up buy-in and how crucial that is. What I want to talk about is, how did you guys get that buy-in? Was it because of the disappointment of the year before, or what really caused you to buy in to Al Borges and what he wanted to do, get behind your coach in Tuberville for that senior season to go out there and do what you needed to do? What made that glue really stick senior year?
Let me tell you what, it's a couple of things. On the field, players and coaches. I think the coaches finally figured out, like, we can't just do this the way we want to do it and just be successful.
Okay.
And I think players looked at it as like, we can't win just off leaning on a few guys, but everybody got to be bought in order for us to win. And everyone can't be worrying about who's getting what. And I think that's the thing that kind of turned the glue when we walked into our senior year is, guys, we're all in this together. And the coaches had to buy in, because what coach, you know, if an offensive coordinator the year before and has some people that's helping him be an offensive coordinator stay on the staff when a whole new guy comes in. They all stayed and no one left. So that brought continuity, it brought stability. So all of a sudden, our offense coordinator go to being back to offensive line coach, but now he's a little bit more experienced now because he's become a coordinator, but he hadn't missed a beat as being an O-line coach, so it keeps all our guys intact. But then their willingness to accept another guy to come in and allow him to be their coach as an offensive coordinator, and them to listen and not take heed or see that as a block or raise a red flag, they accepted it. So I give our coaching staff a lot of credit, especially on the offensive side of the ball, for accepting Coach Borges come in there, and they all just kind of take a step back. Now, from a player standpoint, it took a lot of players doing the same thing. You know, it's a lot of guys. Some guys were preseason All-American. Some guys, you know, had question marks, and everyone just kind of bind together and kind of grew together, and everyone checked their ego at the door. And if you didn't, one of the players did. It was a players ran football team, and Mike knows this. Like, our coaches said very little to us during that whole season when things weren't going right. If there was a practice that was kind of sputtering, the players would stop the practice and get on to each other.
Yeah.
If a guy didn't show up to practice, or the guy didn't show up and he missed a workout, it wasn't so much the coach having to go get him. The players checking in, dude, where you at? Why you not at practice? Why you missed the training this morning? You know, it was the players making each other accountable. And that's what gets you to the next level, because when it's 85,000, 100,000 people in the stands going crazy and you can't hear the coach on the sideline, who you think out there got to do the communication amongst each other?
Right.
It's 11 guys that's on the football field. And if you can't communicate with each other on the football field and you can't communicate in practice, then what makes you think it's going to transition when all odds are stacked against you?
Right.
So that was our thing, was just learning how to talk to each other, communicate each other. Now, the thing off the field, what brought us together the closest? You know, Brother Chet ran this thing, man. It was awesome. Like,
Brother Chet.
People don't realize how important he were to our program and how important he still is to a lot of guys that come through that program. We did this thing on Friday nights where we didn't talk about football once we went into this room. And when you go into this room, it was all about, first it started off just players, then coaches started to come. And we didn't talk about football. It was all about what's going on in someone else's life that you may not know about. So you will find out if your brother, your teammate has a family member, a parent that is sick, has a sister or a cousin or somebody that something just happened, and now you understand their emotions and why they're going through what they're going through during a week of practice. So now I have an opportunity to pick my brother up, and I have an opportunity to pick him up on Saturday when we get ready to play the game. Because now I'm not just playing for a win. I'm playing to bring some type of joy in his life, even if it's for a week or 2 weeks. It gives me a little extra motivation to play a little bit harder, and also understand that it just means more at that standpoint because I know what's going on in his life.
Mm.
And when you do that, and all of a sudden it started out as 12 guys, then it goes to 25 guys and 30 guys and 40 guys. And you start to get a room full of 40 and 50 guys, and then here's your coaches are starting to be in there. Your coaches are telling stories about stuff that's going on in their life. And people don't think coaches go through stuff. They go through a lot of stuff. So you got the coach sitting over there crying in tears on a Friday night about what their kid is going through, or what his wife is going through, or what he may be going through internally. You start to listen to your coach a little bit more. You start to play a little bit more for your coach, and it builds that emotional confidence. And I think as men, we've been taught for so long, be tough, be tough. You can't do this. Don't say nothing. Just keep it all in. And that's wrong. Yes, you don't tell everybody your business, but if we're going to be together on Saturdays and we're going to be together blood, sweat, and tears on Monday through Friday in the off season doing winter workouts and everything at 5:30 in the morning, I think the more you let me know about you, I'm going to grow closer to you because we're trying to achieve the same thing.
Right.
Now, unless we trying to go two separate directions, that's one thing. But we trying to go win and we trying to achieve the same thing. I need to know how to help you. You need to know how to help me. And the only way we can do that is through communication. So our biggest thing, man, was we learn how to communicate and we learn how to overcome what we call setbacks because we went through them together. It wasn't individually. We all went through that together.
Jason, you're taking me back with this interview. I remember a lot of fun things about your time at Auburn. Mostly that, I mean, we had dogs, and I want to talk about that dog mentality for a second. So, 2-a-days isn't what it used to be. So, I will tell you what I remember about 2-a-days. I remember we used to go to Sewell Hall. We had to get three really heavy meals a day at Sewell. You had to get your nutrition in because it was the only way you're gonna make it through 2-a-days. Hell, I was holding the camera and I had I had to eat at least 3 steaks to get through it. But you guys would go down to the intramural fields and they would line the offensive line up versus the defensive line. And just go at it in the trenches. Maybe the running backs were involved in this drill. You were in there, you'd hand the ball off, and they would just go at it. Fights would break out. I know you guys all loved each other, but Ben Grubbs came on and he talked about a moment that he had with King Dunlap. You talked about that accountability where King was kind of a young pup and he wasn't holding his weight. And Ben said, Mike, I got on him and I just started hitting him. And we talked to King about it. King acknowledges that in the moment he needed that accountability. He denies the ass whooping, but he admits he needed the accountability. What does that look like for kids these days? I mean, again, you got it's different for kids. We got social media and we got all these distractions that maybe you guys didn't have. But how can kids today really develop the same kind of accountability that you guys had during that time?
I would say a lot of these kids nowadays, man, the first thing is they have to be willing to accept accountability. You have to be willing to listen, more than you are trying to be heard. And I just think that a lot of these guys, they don't want someone trying to tell them, what to do and per se, or how to do something. They think they all got it figured out because when they come out of high school, everyone's rolling out the red carpet for them. because they're trying to get them to their university. And then once they get to their university and the coach not rolling out the red carpet no more, he's getting on to them and into and trying to get the best out of them. They take it as a different approach. Like, man, what's wrong with you? You're not the same dude because he's not rolling out the red carpet for him. And I'm just like, any great player that I've ever known or any good player that I ever known, all want to be coached hard. Like, because that's the only way you're gonna get to the next level. A lot of these kids don't want to be coached hard because even from ninth grade, it starts at an early age now. I've seen guys as kids at seventh grade, coaches kissing up to them in high school just to make sure they don't leave their high school program and they get to their program in high school. And I'm just like, you're scared to coach the kid because you're scared he's gonna leave and transfer to another school. And that's the problem we're having nowadays with where coaches have a hard job now in college and in high school. I'm living in it. I'm seeing it. They're feeling like they can't do as much as they used to do because the transfer portal is so easy now for a kid to hop in the portal and he can go to your rival school and play the next year. Where before, if you transferred, you had to sit out a full year if you was to go and then play that following year. So you had to think long and hard about it. So a coach knew he had you more of an opportunity to deal with a kid that was fully committed than a kid that got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So yeah, my 1 foot is in, as long as it's all going my way and I'm getting what I want. But as soon as I hit a wall or I hit some type of adversity, I'm checked out. I'm going to the nets. I'm going to my net spot because they think in their mind everything is always green on the other side. Because in high school and junior high, they was able to just jump from school to school because the coach just want to win. So he's going to take your attitude. He's going to take your laziness. He's just because at a high school, your skill can be so much better than the other kid because you're in high school, you're just more talented. But then when you get to the SEC or you get to some of these bigger conferences in college, that won't work because this other kid is just as talented as you are, but he's more of a harder worker than you. But you can't stand the fact that somebody get in your face and tell you, hey, you need to pick it up a little bit more. Or, hey, I need more from you. You didn't hear it from a positive mindset of coaches getting on to me or my buddies getting on to me because he know I can do better. All you heard was, man, what you trying to say to me? Like, what you trying to say? What you trying to say? I'm not good enough. Like, they not hearing what they should be hearing because they've been buttered up their whole young youth career because everyone is afraid I don't want to lose the kid. I don't want the kid to leave my program. And even as a parent, oh, my kid's so talented, I don't want my kid to cut me off. Like, you need to continue to stay hard on your kid, and you want your kid to be with a coach that's going to coach your kid extremely hard because now you're not just building a player, you're building a man. Because this is one day going to be a man when he hangs these cleats up and he decides to get into the real world. You want him to be able to pour into his kids, to build his kids up to have strong character. And that's where character gets built. It gets built through toughness. It gets built through challenges, not when everyone's giving you everything. You're setting a kid up for failure. You're setting them up for disappointment in life because you're afraid to get on to them. I guarantee you, when I coached AAU for 3 years, I coached high school football for 3 years, man, I coached those kids extremely hard. And I wasn't afraid I'm going to lose any of them. And like I told them, if you want to leave, leave. I said, because my job is to get the best out of you. And if you go somewhere else for another coach and he just want to butter you up, and I said, you better check and see if he got your best interest at heart.
Setting you up for failure.
Or he's setting you up for failure. I said, just telling you everything you want to hear. I said, because anybody that's going to be in your corner that wants the best for you, whether it's your parents, whether it's your siblings, or whether it's your teammate, when they see something that's not right, they're going to tell you the truth because they don't want to see you fail and they don't want to see you in a situation. So they're going to tell you the truth. People that don't really care about you only want to just tell you what you want to hear so they can stay right there close to you. So either they can get a handout or they can be along for the ride. And you got to decipher between the two what's best for me. And these kids need to understand that in college now, you have social media. If I'm an athlete and I'm playing football or basketball or baseball, whatever, in season, I'm cutting out social media because even if I do good, I'm gonna hear too many good things that it
Right.
can get into your head and you can become complacent. Or if I have a rough game, I'm gonna hear too many negative thoughts to now I'm so focused on defending myself and standing up for myself rather than just putting that game behind me and moving on to the next one and working hard that week to have a better game. I'm focused on all the outside noise. I don't need all that distraction. So it's more important to me to focus on my season, focus on my books. And then when all season comes, I want to jump on social media. There's no football season or something at that time. All right, I can get on there and have a little fun. But eliminate distractions and stop looking for all these yes people to be in your corner to tell you what you want to hear or to butter you up to build your head up. But start finding people that wants your best interest. And sometimes it's going to be a lot of stuff that you don't want to hear, but you need to hear.
We were gonna save this until a little bit later, but you're in the pocket right now. That's what the preacher said. You're in the pocket right now. So we're gonna stay right here for
You're
just a
flowing
minute.
from the survival scrolls right now.
Yeah, we're gonna stay right here for just a minute because I want to talk about the nature of distractions in the college athlete right now. You're working right now with NIL Auburn.
Right.
And a lot of people are super against the whole NIL structure. It's transfer portal and NIL is ruining college sports, right? But I want you to talk a little bit about just the NIL program and just the things that it can be beneficial for and the pitfalls that some of these athletes need to look out for when they're getting into some of these NIL things, distractions, whatever it may be. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. Like you're saying, like this is like the game has changed. This is stuff that we didn't have to deal with when we was in college. Like we were just happy to get a scholarship check. Where now these kids have an opportunity to earn a living for themselves. And my whole thing is when I talk to these guys is you're still getting a scholarship check. So the money that you get from the NIL, why not put it in a bank account? So when you finish playing football at college, only 2% of you, if that, 1% of you guys may have a chance to go to the next level. The rest of you are not going to have that same opportunity. So if you save your money that you're making through NIL, when you come out of college, you already don't have any student loans.
Right.
Now you have money in your account that you can get a fresh start to life. And you don't have to worry about, trying to figure it out. You got a head start that a lot of people wish they had. And it's not that it was handed to you. You earned it. Like you play hard, you play on the football field, you play on the basketball court, baseball, soccer, all that. And you help provide for school by putting a lot of people in those seats by how you perform. And like I said, I've always said this: coaches get millions, they live in mansions, they eat good, they feel good. But what about what those players are doing on the football field? Because everyone thinks all these guys go pro, and they don't.
Right.
And some of them have helped make coaches multimillionaires. And so it's only fair that these kids start to receive some compensation, for what they're bringing to the table. Because I know a lot of folks like, well, they're getting an education. I'm just like, okay. I'm just like, but the education not free. I was just like, the kid is laying his life on the line. I was just like, I'm pretty sure Auburn made a bunch of money off our bats in '04. I'm pretty
For
sure
sure.
they did.
Yeah,
And
a lot
fortunate
more
enough,
than
some
that.
of them were able to go pro. But
A
what
lot
about
more
your
than that degree
Roseburns?
costs.
What about your Wayne Dickens? What about Travis Williams? Mayo Saw. What about the guys that didn't make it pro? Danny Lindsay and Brett Edens and those guys that contribute and played extremely hard, made huge plays throughout the year. Tuberville got a huge extension after that season. Those guys had to go to the real workforce. We was fortunate enough to play in the pros, but you don't know how long your career gonna be in the NFL. You're one play away from starting over.
Yeah.
So, it's just the fact that people was against it and everything, but people got to understand like this is the new world. It's the reality. And yes, was it dropped on us out of the wild, wild west? It sure was. It was just dropped in and like boom, here you go. Every school deal with it on your own. And there was no planning for it. There was no, trying to look out for these kids' best interests. There was no classes for it to teach these kids about finances, to teach these kids about how you don't need an agent for NIL and and to teach them about, how to look at finances, because knowing you got to pay taxes on this money, understanding that it's not pay for play,
Mm,
understanding that it's going to require some of your time that you want to show up, whether it's at events, whether it's autograph signing, whether it's, you know, whatever it calls for, NFTs or any of that stuff, it requires your time. And you making your money based off your likeness, name, image, and likeness. And that's what the NIL stands for. That's what it is. And I told these guys, I was like, look, that's great and all, but don't let that be your whole source of thinking to the point that you don't forget why you came here.
Right.
I was just like, yes, number one, you do want to get your education, because if all else fail, you got something to fall back on, and your education, it just helps your mentality from a whole standpoint differently as well. But then the second part of it is, don't start worrying about so much about what I can get doing this. Oh, I need to get more followers so I can see if I can get more money here. Or I need to try to do this so I can get more money. Stay within the confinements of the football game, of what you're trying to do to win games. Because I got to tell everybody, if you're winning, you don't have
Right.
to worry about that. That's
Right.
going to take care of itself. Because people want to see more of you, and they going to want to come meet you somewhere. Like, you're gonna have those opportunities. And when you do the NIL, it's great from this standpoint. Well, I said only 1% of the guys are gonna have opportunity to make it pro. The other 99%, 98%, this is a great opportunity for them to network. Because what better opportunity, when I was in school, no one could even buy me a hamburger. Like, it was illegal.
that's a fact.
So now a kid, if a person signs up through the subscription of our NIL, and when our kids are signed up in our NIL, now we have a meeting. Now that business person and that kid are able to be in the same room and be able to talk and communicate and look each other in the eye. And I tell these kids, take advantage of this opportunity to network, get to know these people, let them get to know you a little bit. So when your career is over, whether it's in college or whether it's in the pros, and you want to do something, that person gonna remember the conversation that you had and gonna
Mm.
pick the phone up and say, hey, I hear you was looking for a job here and there. I remember the conversation we had. We want to bring you in, and maybe there's a job opportunity there, because it's a great networking opportunity, man, for these kids. And I just hope they don't look at it just for so much money per se,
Yeah.
but they really look at the opportunities that it will present. And when you're talking about 18 to 22-year-old kids, it's not so much the kids I'm just worried about, but it's the parents,
Right.
because a lot of these parents are going to be pressuring these kids now to retire them. And
Mm.
not everybody's making all the kind of money in NIL. And I know you hear some ridiculous numbers is being thrown out there. We don't know if they're really true or not. But these kids now going to be having the pressure of whether mom and dad gets along, or what do I do with this money? How do I where do I put it? How do I pay taxes at the end of the year? So what we have to do, we have to educate them. We have to educate them and their families about the finances, about how they receive their money, about how to set up accounts if they don't know how to set up accounts. Just from a standpoint of just understanding like everyday life and how finances work. And so it's a great opportunity, man, because a lot of kids gonna be in some great situations, and the whole goal is to make sure that every kid that's on campus, that's participating for sports, at any sport, all the way down to equestrian or anything, it's receiving some type of NIL, because our whole goal is to make sure that we're helping these kids reach the magnitude and maximize their opportunities, because it's only a 4-year stint.
Right.
And after those 4 years, you're into the real world.
So, Jason, beside NIL, tell folks at home what else you're doing these days. I've seen you have had your hand in a couple different things. You had your own podcast for a minute. I checked that out.
You
Enjoyed
still
that.
you still doing Believe, right?
Are you
Yeah,
still
yeah,
doing
yeah,
Buyin?
yeah. We're
Yeah.
still doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell the folks what they can find Jason Campbell doing these days.
Yeah, like I said, we just talked about the podcast, so you can find me at Believe in Auburn, Believe in Everything Auburn. I do that actually with Taylor Beth Davis. She's an ESPN reporter. She also went to Auburn, graduated from there, and in the broadcasting business. So we do that weekly. We put out our show, so everyone tune in and listen in. We cover all things Auburn, and got some really good, interesting stories. and different things. But I also do NBC Sports up in DC with Washington football. I can't say football anymore. Washington Commanders now.
Commanders, yeah.
Yeah, so I also do that, and I did this past year. I did CBS Sports Network up in New York with covering the NFL on the Monday Quarterback Show. So people want to go back and Google some of the episodes that I did on there. I did about 8 episodes this year with them, with Rich Gannon and those guys, not Rich Eisen, but yeah. So that's pretty much the main part of it is doing all the CBS Sports and NBC, and I did a couple of things in Chicago. All of it's been broadcasting for the most part. Like I've done Auburn radio over the last couple of years with Andy and those guys, but just trying to take it one day at a time and try to figure out, you can't keep doing too many things. So I gotta bring some of them down a little bit, but it's been fun.
Well, I'm glad that in your retirement that you're finding things to keep yourself busy. Jason, we really appreciate you giving us a little of your time today to talk Auburn football, share your experience, and give advice to young athletes that I think they will really find valuable. So thank you.
Yeah, man, no problem. Yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on. It's always a pleasure to come on and support you brothers. I know it took y'all a time to get me. I was running circles, man. And like I said, Devin reached out to me today and told me about it. And I told him, I'm on. I'm going to do it. I told him I'll be there. I was out of town, but make sure we get it taken care of. But no, man, I just thank you guys for all you're doing. And I think it's very important, for people to hear other guys' stories and kind of behind the scenes and different things, because it's one thing to see players on the field, but it's a whole nother thing to see, to hear some of their stories. So I think y'all doing a tremendous job of doing that, and I hope that some of these kids listen to some of the stuff that y'all say. I understand y'all trying to come from a good place and everything.
Well, that's it for another great edition of Building Rapport with our guy Jason Campbell. Listen, if you want more content like that, hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every single social media platform. TW Rapport on TikTok. Guys, we're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.